How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we welcome you to our recruiting special of the Season 6 offseason. We had a number of players we were trying to sign, and how about this? We're able to pull in all 5 of our interested parties. The big signing, of course, being Joel Sykes, the left guard, but Calvin Ryan, a sneaky, very good receiver. Kenton Hill and TC Colvin, both safeties, decide to commit their futures to the Panthers, and Calvin Burgess, the local product, decides to stay home in Pittsburgh as well. We do miss out on a few guys, but if you take a look at pretty much everybody we missed out on, it's because we didn't put any interest in them and just let them go elsewhere. Essentially, Jamie Small was the one really good player that I wish we would have showed some interest in, 3-star, but he was 78 overall, went to Cincinnati with PJ Fleck. But take a look at these signings. Joel Sykes, the left guard, he's unbelievable, number 10 guard in the country, 80 overall. Very excited to have him into the program. Calvin Burgess, fullback, only 2-star rating, but number 15 fullback, very good player. Those sound, 73 overall. He's a local guy from Pittsburgh. Great to get him out of interest from Louisville. Calvin Ryan, we knew was pretty much a gimme that we were going to sign once Notre Dame dropped him off their board, and we got him. TC Colvin was probably the luckiest signing that we got because he never got full interest, but we were the only team to really put any level of commitment towards him. And I don't know why. I mean, he's a fantastic player. Number 3 free safety in the country. I think his overall dropped a bit. He was projected at 77, ended up being 75. So it is what it is. But we still get him into the team anyways. Kenton Hill, we signed as well. He was a guy that went the other way. A little bit lower rated, like number 16 or 17 strong safety. 73 projection, ends up being a 75 overall. And we snagged him as well. So you take a look at this recruiting class. Unbelievable job for us. We didn't get any 5-stars, which I think is fair. Pitt's not typically a program that's bringing in 5-star recruits, but because of the success we've had over the last couple of years, the 4-stars were very easy to woo. I think we ended up with 9 4-star recruits in our recruiting class here. Jesse Coley and Tim Lewis were our first 2 signings, the quarterback and kicker, and then we ended up getting a ton of very good players. CJ Kirk, incredibly excited about him as a quarterback. Davion Reynolds, the halfback, looks fantastic. Couple of guys that I'm really excited to use. TC Colvin and Kenton Hill, the safeties. Those were guys that I kind of threw some emphasis at later on, and I'm very excited about using them. Take a look at our overall rankings. We had 5 signings inside the ESPN Top 100, led, of course, by Davion Reynolds, our number 1 guy. TC Colvin, though, 106 overall. Surprisingly, Kenton Hill is number 447 in terms of overall rankings. 3-star player. He looks very good. I'm excited to use him. And then we did have 3 signings down there at the bottom: Matthews, Peterson, and Hill. Those are the guys that, the game decides to just sign for you. They're basically walk-ons that get added to the roster. None of them will be on our final roster. So our end recruiting class is 15 players, and we're very excited about the contents of those 15 guys. 2 quarterbacks, which will be interesting to see. Of course, we only had 2 rostered quarterbacks before that, so getting Kirk and Coley is going to definitely add to the depth at the position. Joel Sykes, only 174 in terms of rank. He ends up being probably one of the steals of the recruiting class, 80 overall. I think other than Davion Reynolds, who's an 85 overall, Sykes is our number 1 recruit in terms of overall, with the exception of the kicker Lewis, just because, we're talking, position outfield type players, you know what I mean. We are short on 1 need position at middle linebacker. We still only have, I think, 1 middle linebacker rostered, but we're going to do a little bit of position changing and switching some guys around in order to make up for that. And I have some interesting thoughts in the works as far as the way that we'll be lining up defensively next season. But we end up with 10 4-star recruits, tied for top in the nation with Texas, who had the number 1 class because they added the 5-star, and a few other guys as well. LSU with a couple of 5-stars, a wide receiver, and an athlete. So we'll see if he's a halfback. They also got a 4-star halfback in McFarland in order to replace Donation Lanou, remember, who transferred to Houston. We saw that in the last episode. South Carolina with a great class, number 5 in the country. Clemson, the number 6 class in the country, and the 5-star recruit they got is unbelievable. Alabama, a bit of a small class, only 13 players, but they get 3 5-star recruits, including the number 1 recruit in the country. Notre Dame with some really nice players here as well. The number 7 class. UCLA, who will be playing this year, has the number 9 class in the country. Michigan rounds out the top 10 with 23 signings for Jim Harbaugh, even on the back of a little bit of a struggling 7-6 season. Ohio State does get 2 5-star recruits as well. A little bit shocking for them to have only the 15th rated class, but, you know, they get a lot of high-level talent. They just didn't have a ton of guys in their class. Tennessee, who will be playing this year, number 18 class in the country. Not a ton of ACC schools in the top 25 in terms of recruiting classes in the nation. Penn State there at number 25. They get a ton of guys on the line. I think they got 3 or 4 four-star defensive tackles, which is absurd. Remember, they signed Mayo away from us, the defensive tackle that we really wanted, and they signed some other defensive tackle that we really wanted. So Penn State playing spoiler there. You can see the remainder of the recruiting rankings. Pause it, obviously, if you're looking for a particular school. But just to get a little bit more well-rounded on some of the big-name players that we're going to see here, let's take a look at the ESPN Top 100. You got Desmond Williams, the middle linebacker, goes to Alabama. When I create him, I think he's like a 93 overall or something. Freshman middle linebacker. It's going to be incredible because I add a lot of top-level recruits. I add about 10 top-level recruits that go to big-name programs that are going to be very, very talented and can make an impact right away. Because you don't see that in the NCAA default recruiting classes. Not a lot of freshmen that go right into the starting lineup. At least not impact freshmen. The only time you might see a freshman starting on some teams is because they just forgot to recruit a position. You don't see it just because the player is just naturally better than everybody. But we got Talik Bird, wide receiver, decides to go to Ohio State. I think he went to Ohio State. He was either Ohio State or Notre Dame. And then Tavion Carter went to either Ohio State or Notre Dame. Two very good receivers. You got Miles Bigsby, halfback recruit that was created. Blake Hunter, very, very good quarterback that goes to Stanford. He's the number 1 quarterback. I created him. Tristan Richards from Washington. I think he's an 86 overall quarterback. He's going to Washington. Other players that were created, A.J. Jackson Stroud, chose him as a 75 overall. I think he's actually like an 83 overall. He's going to Georgia. Very, very talented player. So I throw some of these guys in, and they end up pretty much almost exclusively going to big programs, with the exception of Jonathan Carter last year went to Troy, and he was a beast. Now, Jalen Lindsay is my favorite recruit, I think, that I made in this class. Free safety. I made him kind of in the ilk of an Isaiah Simmons type of player, and Clemson signs him, incredibly enough. 5-star, 6'2", 211. He's an incredible athlete. I believe his overall, same thing, is 89, 90, somewhere in that neighborhood. So he's going to be fantastic. Davion Reynolds, of course, was one of the guys that I did add to the class, and he was interested in us right from the start. He was a position of need for us, and so I figured, you know what, I'll take my chances with him. 4-star athlete. And here he comes. He's going to make, hopefully, a big impact for us right from the get-go, but we'll see how things shake out. And you can see the remainder of the top 100. Obviously, we had a few guys in there as well. You can feel free to pause and see who's good. Now, this is, like I said, we'll look at the custom guys I created, because even 1 or 2 of them didn't even end up in the top 100 for whatever reason. Giovanni Perry decides to go to Texas. He's from Texas. I think he's an 84 overall, 85 overall quarterback. He might be right in the mix for Texas to start, and he's the most mobile of the quarterbacks available this year. Fantastic player. Like I mentioned, Jackson Stroud going to Georgia. You got Bigsby going to Michigan, and you got Davion Reynolds going to Pitt. Fantastic players. Talik Bird does go to Ohio State, like I mentioned, and Tavion Carter goes to Notre Dame. Both of those guys. Tavion Carter's projected overall shows 89, so you know he's very, very good. I think he's right around that neighborhood, 89, 88, somewhere in there. So he's going to be playing for Notre Dame right away, you would assume. Phil Nelson, number 3 tight end in the country, who we signed. Chris Massey, number 3 defensive end in the country, we were lucky enough to sign. The middle linebacker, like I mentioned, you can see just some of the other top recruits available. Tennessee actually gets the number 1 outside linebacker. Desmond Williams, number 1 player in the country, goes to Alabama. He'll be starting at middle linebacker, I would expect, as a true freshman. And Jalen Lindsay, the free safety, who same thing, may see starting at Clemson from day 1, although they had I think their starting free safety was going to go pro and decide to stay, so we'll see how much playing time he's able to get. I still think they'll have him in the lineup quite a bit, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see how that shakes out, and I'll check on their depth chart just to make sure these guys aren't getting kept out of playing time when they deserve it. But incredible recruiting for us. 5 signings on National Signing Day, which was incredible, and some players of real need for us. Calvin Burgess coming in at fullback, Joel Sykes at guard. We could use the line help with Cam Porter graduating. Calvin Ryan at receiver, that gives us an absolute wealth of talent at the receiver position and some speed that we really needed. So we're excited to see that, and then we refresh our secondary as well. Of course, we still have Avery Heller, we still have Jacob Lachlan, those guys that played significant roles for us last year, but now we have some depth that'll let us grow for the future when we need to replenish those positions. And I'm really excited about Kenton Hill. Hard hitter, 3-star. He's underrated, a little bit undersized, needs to put some weight on, but he's a guy that looks like he just has a nose for the football and can blow guys up. So like I mentioned, guys, in the comments of the video, what I want you to put is if you're interested in renaming a player. Some of the guys are not going to be renamed, like CJ Kirk, Davion Reynolds, probably the 2 safeties are the guys that are not going to be renamed, but for the most part, anybody else is up for grabs. I could leave them, I could change them. It just depends on what names I like. But if you are interested in it, or you want your player to potentially be a recruit for next year's recruiting class, if you can't get in as one of these players, leave your name that you want the player to become, leave the name of the player that you want to be, leave the name you want to change it to, number for the player that you would like to have with your player. Give me 2 numbers actually, preferred, because if one's taken, I can use the other one. And the biggest thing is give me the gear you want the player to wear, so what you want them to look like and what gear you want them to wear so we can swag them out a little bit. And finally, give me a backstory. That's the biggest thing that helps people have an opportunity to become one of these players. If you have a good backstory, something I can mix in as I do the commentary of the games, that's always fantastic and always helps. So if you have that, that is going to be something great that can really help your chances out, or at least add some intrigue, or even be something I'll use for another player potentially. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.